Dougie.
Sam.
It's been a long winter break, but we are back. We are so back. For the first time ever, I've forgotten to write an intro, so I'm freestyling this, and I'll just soft launch the podcast by saying this. Today, we're answering 5, maybe slightly more than 5 questions that will determine the rest of the season.
Manchester City are sending the Arsenal fans into meltdown once again.
It's only a 6-point gap with 14 games to go. This is not finished yet.
What does this do to the league? I think this is a title done now for Arsenal, and I think they could go on win it by 8-10 points. I'd be amazed if they don't.
Why can't Manchester United look at second place with 1 game a week with like 13 games left and go, it's all on, it's anybody's?
I think there is scepticism within the Chelsea fan base, as there always would be, for Rosenior coming in, given the path that he's taken and his track record.
Hugo and Bert, I genuinely think, are probably one of the best duos in the league.
Yes, hello everybody and welcome back to The Truth. Back from a winter break that started off like a Bundesliga break, but ended up looking more like a Danish winter break. That would be my fault, sorry. For the first time in about 6 weeks, I am your host, Sam Tighe. Joining me is my dear friend, Dougie Critchley. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we're deep into 2026 now, lads. We left on I think it was the 22nd of December, maybe it was the final episode, but it is great to be back and in particular be in the presence of a man freshly honeymooned as well.
Yeah, let's get to him in a moment.
Yeah.
Because I've got to do my intro for him as well, right? But first of all, I actually saw Dougie about 6 hours ago at the Sky Sports studios. I just finished the Transfer Talk pod. I came out of the studio and I spotted Dougs. You looked a little hurried. A little flustered.
Fairly.
Your brow was furrowed and you were muttering the word vouchers. Do you want to go ahead and explain that?
Yeah, Sky are doing a new series of debates sponsored by Uber Eats, fan debates, and Uber Eats are giving vouchers to the winner of those debates. But yeah, you saw me about 30 minutes before. There's 4 cameras and people asking you various questions and vouchers. So I was 20%, 30% stressed.
Cool.
More stressed than normal.
And the vouchers situation. So I saw you a couple of weeks ago, also after a podcast, and you were microwaving food for someone. So we've moved from microwaving old food to vouchers.
Yeah, that episode's never going to see the light of day, but I did order the food the night before, put it in the fridge, and then we're having to frantically microwave it, this food from Uber Eats, which might be a bit of a health and safety concern. But Uber Eats have taken the sensible decision to just purely give the winner vouchers. £100 worth of Uber Eats vouchers. You can get a lot for that.
You can get loads for that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right. And the big question before we do introduce our producer, before Christmas, that's how long it's been.
Yeah.
We need to just like think about Christmas for a moment. It's February, man. Before Christmas, you asked Santa for a new microphone for your studio and some new underwear. Did Santa deliver the goods?
Delivered on the microphone. I'm not underwearless, but I need to update my collection. Yeah, I didn't get what I dreamt of, but no, I can't complain. It was a great Christmas period. Did you get what you dreamt of? I can't even remember.
I definitely not, mate. I mean, so I asked for 2 things. One was some new AirPods, which I bought myself last week. That's how that went. The second thing I asked for was world peace. That's gone down.
That's a lost cause.
We're
seemingly
further away from that than we were in December.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sadly.
I think Christmas was a failure. But there you go. And yes, I do feel like a rusty host. However, I will not forget to introduce our producer and give him his big introduction. The son of Darius the Great and a tosser, a wicked and ruthless ruler with a lust for blood, a crusher of revolts who brought Greece to his heel, raising Athens as comeuppance for its crimes. That is the story of Persian ruler Xerxes the Great, but in many ways it's also the story of Jack Collins. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Sam.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very, very good.
Conquered any continents recently?
South America, actually. South America, now under my heel, under my vicious heel. You're actually lucky that this is going ahead, because when I touched down in Buenos Aires, I was like, I found El Dorado. I found the culture that I've been looking for. I have found everything that I was looking for. And leaving it, I tell you, was a real stretch. I might have moved forever. So I've fallen head over heels in love with Argentina, as one might do. But I really did. Lucy and I went to find her office building to see if it was possible for us to move to Buenos Aires for like 6 months of the year.
They've got a branch there. That's good.
Yeah, there is a branch. So it's something that we can't rule out in the future. But for now, I am back in London and back with you two. And it's wonderful to see you both. A very, very belated Happy New Year to you both.
Yes, absolutely. And to all the listeners, I'm sure you've heard that a million times. I think by about January the 5th, I tapped out of that. But it's been a while. So, is what it is. But let's get to work. In Bundesliga language, here begins our Rückrunde, the second half of the season. And we are starting really soft because I'm super out of practice and knackered from deadline day. And Dougie is also
focusing on vouchers.
Just too busy focusing on microwaved food and vouchers. So I've got a list of questions that I think the answers of which will shape the rest of the season. Plenty of Premier League, but we can open it up for a continental glance towards the end as well. First up, Dougie, back in September, I listened back on this very podcast as we entered season 2. We combined to pick Arsenal to win the Premier League title. We also broadly agreed that had Liverpool signed Mark Guéhi, we would have both picked Liverpool to win the title. Man City signed Mark Guéhi in the end. So do the additions of him and Semenyo give you the confidence that Arsenal can be overhauled over the second half of the season?
No, in short. And before I at least take too much credit for that prediction at the start of the season, I did actually have
Liverpool. So you can't take any credit for a prediction that hasn't come true yet?
Well, exactly. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
But at the start of the season, I actually thought Liverpool were going to win the league. A few weeks in, I thought Arsenal were going to win the league. But one thing I have stayed consistent on the whole way through was I didn't think Man City were going to get into real touching distance. Now, I do think they've definitely given themselves a great opportunity in January. But Mark Guéhi, let's not forget, was signed due to massive injuries to Gvardiol and Diaz. Gvardiol out for the entire season. I think Diaz is out until April. I think Diaz is out for a few more weeks. Stones is out for a number of weeks more as well.
Gvardiol's out for the season, is he?
Gvardiol's out for the entire season.
Yeah, so the last time I looked at that, they were a bit unclear, but it was an injury that I have never heard of.
I actually don't even know what it is.
We've been watching football for a long time. We know our body parts, right? And we know our injuries at this point. I mean, whatever he got, I can't remember. Jack, if you could look it up for it, it'd be great. I can't even remember what it is. I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It didn't look great. And I think Mark Guéhi, obviously going forward, they could bring Gvardiol in as their left back going forward and Guéhi and Diaz as their centre backs and then potentially sign a new right back and playing in front of Donnarumma. That feels really, really strong for next season.
It was a broken leg.
No, I've heard of a broken leg.
It was called a tibial fracture.
I mean, I guess that's the tibia.
Yeah.
Right? But
Yeah.
I thought it was described as an ankle injury. But there you go. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
Maybe they got it wrong to begin with.
you don't
Possible.
get a lot of those.
But he's not recovering quickly either way. And Semenyo, I mean, what a signing he's proven to be so far. It is early days, of course. Signed because Savio and Bob weren't really performing to the level of expected at the start of this season. Doku's had injury issues as well in the last couple of months as well, but Semenyo's just carried through that form from Bournemouth really seamlessly. But do I think it's enough to overturn the gap to Arsenal, which, as we record this, stands at 6 points? I don't think so. I mean, Man City have only won one of their last 6 league games. They lost to Man United in that time. They drew against Sunderland, Chelsea and Brighton and Spurs. They beat Wolves, their only victory in that run. And really, given that, it's surprising that the gap is so small because I don't feel like City have been anywhere close to their best. And they have had massive injury issues to contend with in that backline I was already mentioned. Rodri probably doesn't feel like he's going to get back to his absolute top level this season.
Rodri's started getting caught out by the refs.
Absolutely.
I mean, they've cottoned on.
And ranting unnecessarily, I would say as well. Bernardo Silva feels like a spent force. Foden's form has dipped in the last few weeks. Erling Haaland's only scored 2 in his last 11 now. I think Ryan Shirky's felt like an excellent addition, but Tijani Reinders, I think it's been a little bit inconsistent for my liking as well. I find it very difficult to imagine them overturning this deficit to Arsenal, who have kind of had their blip, and I actually was really impressed with the way they dispatched Leeds at the weekend as well. So for me, I think it will end up being 7 to 10 points. I don't think it's going to be more than 10, just because of the nerves that are attached to this Arsenal title pursuit. But I still think it'll be fairly comfortable.
7 to 10 is a comfortable title victory, So that's still a big shout, I think. Had City not made these moves, I would have backed them to win the title by 7 to 10 points. Because City have made these moves, I'm backing Arsenal to win by 4 points.
Okay.
I think it brings them closer, it keeps them in touch, but I don't think it's enough. Because there's no real reason for me to doubt what we've been talking about all season long with Arsenal in terms of the quality, the depth, the physicality, the set piece excellence. Like I think they're going to get the job done. And yeah, I mean, there's been a bit of hysteria recently, and a lot of that is on the fans. Like they've got serious scars on this fan base, and I do feel for them a little bit, because if you finish second 3 years in a row, and there's one thing that brings you down each time, be it like a Saliba injury or a Kai Havertz torn hamstring, whatever it might be, you are naturally on the defensive, and you are always worried about how it might go wrong. Whereas City have got so many positive memories of winning 9 games in a row when it really matters. That muscle memory feels different. It feels positive. So I can sympathise with the hysteria that Arsenal fans feel, but I do think that they're going to be all right. And I've been talking a few off the ledge recently. I'm
Really?
like, guys, I know you only got 2 points from nine recently, but everyone else also got like 2 points from 9. Like no one won like 3 games in a row over Christmas, because the entire league just like hacked each other to bits and they're all exhausted. So if you have reason to doubt Arsenal, fine, but you need to be able to look across the Premier League and find a really compelling case elsewhere. Semenyo and Gueye, they do a lot for City, but it's not enough for me.
I would agree. I also think that there's maybe an element of, yes, Arsenal aren't blowing teams away. I mean, prior to Leeds in terms of loads of goals scored, but City aren't also retaining leads effectively enough as well. We saw at the weekend throwing away that 2-goal lead against Spurs, who were nowhere in that first half. And yes,
sorry, that's a scandalous game to drop from the position they were in.
100%
at 2-0, and they should have gone 3-0 up right at the start of the second half.
In that environment as well, they also conceded equalisers against Brighton and Chelsea. Earlier this season, they lost against Newcastle, having equalised 3 minutes earlier. Barnes then scored another goal. They gave up a 1-goal lead against Brighton earlier this campaign as well. And you've seen it in the Champions League as well. They've lost 5 group stage games in the last 2 seasons, including to Bodo Glimt very recently as well. And given the fact that they lost Gundogan and Walker and De Bruyne in the summer, I wasn't expecting them to win the league this year. This feels like a bonus to even be in this position right now. They do have less pressure on them than Arsenal, but I just think with Arsenal's depth and the way they've contended with a few quite annoying injuries throughout this season, particularly up front, with Gyökeres having to shoulder the entire burden of that striking line, and Havertz now coming back, and it hasn't been a disaster when they've missed Saka or Odegaard, etc., compared to previous seasons. I still think Arsenal get over the line, and there does feel like there's going to be more speculation about Pep Guardiola towards the end of this season as well. It's not totally clear whether he'll be here next season as well. The Telegraph reporting earlier this week that Xabi Alonso, Enzo Maresca and Cesc Fabregas were their 3 top targets. So if it comes into it that, say, around March, April time, Pep Guardiola announces he's leaving at the end of the season as well, maybe he'd wait to the end of the campaign and then slip away, but that just doesn't feel like something that he would do given the kind of adulation he deserves and the fact that he needs to bow out effectively. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to happen, but it does feel like a little subplot to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he'll be looking at his team right now and struggling to recognise them as one of his own teams. And that's not entirely his fault. I do think the sort of the lay of the land in the Premier League these days is that, quite frankly, anybody, even Pep Guardiola, is not able to sit there and be like, right, here is our 70% possession game model, here is our plan, and we are going to dominate most of each game. And yet we're going to lose to a couple of screamers here and there, but by and large, we are going to suffocate the life. It just doesn't happen anymore. It is impossible for him or any other coach to control that much of the game. And so for Pep, I think he's looking at a landscape that he's probably never seen before in his managerial career, because it started in 2009 with Barcelona and has been basically perfect ever since. And for the first time ever, he, Mikel Arteta, anyone in this league, they cannot get more than probably one half of a game where they've absolutely controlled every part of it before somebody responds or somebody throws it into chaos. I think it's driving Pep mad. I really do. And he's tried to embrace the physical nature of the league. He's tried to embrace that through recruitment and sign players who are probably a little less technical and a little more physical. And it has only exacerbated the issue when it comes to, can we see the game out with the ball for 10 minutes? No, they can't. And so a couple of months ago, we talked about this and we talked about the title race, and the word I used for City was fragile. And I just, even with the introduction of Gueye, I still look at it and see fragility. Perhaps that's different when it's Gay and Ruben Dias. We'll see. But Dias needs to get back pretty fast.
He does indeed.
We'll see. Okay, dropping our gaze to slightly below the title race to Aston Villa. Will they keep a top 5 place by season's end?
A top 5 place, I think there's a decent chance, to be honest. I mean, you've kind of had your recent blip as it is.
I've done nothing wrong.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to go back a little bit, you did win 8 consecutive games. You won 12 of 13 league games between the 12th of September and the 27th of December. And if you are, as we 3 are, a member of the Truth WhatsApp group, you would have heard a little bit about that from Sam. Deservedly so. Deservedly so. It was an amazing run. But since then, there's been 2 wins in 6 games, defeats against Arsenal, Everton and Brentford. You're now 7 points off Arsenal. You're 5 ahead of 4th place Man United and 6 ahead of Chelsea. So it feels like, due to, and I cannot stress this enough, injuries.
Well done.
Injuries.
Thank you.
Losing Camara, Tielemans and McGinn in the space of, what was it, about 10 days?
14 days, yeah.
14 days. Horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And well done for responding with a really smart idea. I don't know how smart it is, really. It felt fairly obvious. Bringing back Douglas Luiz instantly goes into that side. That feels like a really...
He was really good.
He was
really good on Sunday.
Also, I kind of didn't know what sort of Tammy Abraham you get back as well. And look, his goal he scored, which was eventually ruled out because the ball had crossed the line, I think it was 19 seconds earlier. Very, very harsh. But he did look really bright as well, I thought. And I kind of questioned whether offloading Daniel Marlon, which was obviously given sort of for PSR ramifications, etc., and get a certain amount guaranteed, that felt like a little bit of a risk, but then bringing in Tammy Abraham, who's a more natural 9, I can see the logic there as well.
We talked about it, didn't we? And you questioned it. And I said, look, as long as Villa replace him with another one, it's fine. If they don't, it's madness. But they did. And they made money on the deal because Abraham took a pay cut to join Villa, which is mad, by the way. Just like that, you have to take a pay cut to join Villa, who overpay everyone. But that's the kind of money that strikers earn in Turkey, and that's why they go. And they're going to get roughly, 27 million euros all in for Daniel Marlon. They spent 21 on Tammy Abraham, and the wage. Marlon was on 140 grand a week. I think Tammy's more like 100. So Villa are under pressure here with the UEFA settlement to churn and to make a positive balance. And to swap out a guy who doesn't fit your system for a guy who does and make money, that's like
had to be done.
You're operating from a corner, and I think they've done pretty well.
What did you think about the Evan Guessin going to Crystal Palace on loan and Leon Bailey's loan being cancelled?
Yeah, so I think Bailey was recalled because McGinn went down. McGinn usually plays on the right in midfield, and he's out for 6 weeks. A bit of counting the blessings on that, because the initial feedback was they weren't actually sure what he'd done, which was and he was on crutches, and that was oh God, here we go. Because they weren't sure what Camara had done. He tore his PCL and is out for the year. So... yeah,
out for the year.
Sorry, out for the season. Yeah,
okay.
Season. Yeah. So
I was worried for a second.
So there was some concern initially, but I think it looks like it's just going to be 6 weeks, which feels like a blessing at this point, given the state of the other injuries. So Bailey was recalled for that, but Villa have to be very careful about. It's kind of a 1-in, 1-out situation, because depending on who they register for the latter stages of the Europa League, so who's on their A list for UEFA, they need to come to a break even or a positive balance. So you can't just add wages to the bill. You have to take wages off. So Guessin, in the end, came off, right? Because you weren't going to take McGinn off the list. So if you add Bailey, you have to take someone off. This is what they had to do the whole month, which is who can we take off and bring back on? So Bailey looks quite good, actually. He looks more impactful than Guessin has been. And Guessin hasn't worked out. I don't think it's his fault. And we'll see what happens at Palace. I mean, he doesn't even know who the manager is next year. So I sincerely doubt they're going to be making that deal permanent.
Yeah, no, that does feel really tough on him. I think in terms of the overall topic, I think you're now competing for 3rd, 4th, 5th. I think you'll finish above 6th, to be honest. I did put out a slight provocative video on that over Christmas time, predicting you guys to finish outside the top 5. It could still happen. And look, Man United have so few games now. Chelsea have a deeper squad and a fitter squad than Aston Villa. I still think you could finish in the top 4. I still think you could. I don't really have that much conviction on Liverpool managing to put together a serious run, even though they have lost very few games over the last 10 weeks or so. But I'm just pretty gutted for you from what could have been a magnificent sort of not once in a lifetime, because he put together a number of great seasons, but it could have been a Europa League and a third place finish in the Premier League would have been quite special. Whereas now it feels like the chance of a special season maybe have diminished quite a lot.
It's certainly tougher to get Tielemans going down after Cameron McGinn in such quick succession was really horrible. So yeah, I think Villa have done quite well this month out of a tough spot. Luiz and Abraham, while turning a profit, while managing a midfield injury crisis, is good work. Will it be enough? We will see. But it directly links to our next question, which is, are Man United back?
We have been here before.
I will allow you to define what back means. And it doesn't mean Rio Ferdinand waving a pretend contract around. It can be whatever you like. But Man United gaining form is relevant to Aston Villa's top 5 chances, and they have won 3 in a row. Do you think that they are back? So I can't even get through that sentence without laughing.
It's a funny sentence, isn't it? What is back for Man United? Do their fans have a much better chance of watching a more compact and committed and entertaining side than Ruben Amorim? Absolutely. Are they going to? Do they look like they could, with this same squad, challenge for a league title next year and compete for the Champions League if they end up qualifying for it? Absolutely not, especially when you factor in that one of their best players in the Michael Carrick era of 3 games has been Casemiro, and it's already been announced that he's leaving. So Man United need to sign 2 central midfielders, I would say, this summer. That is no mean feat in a market where you're not the biggest fish out there, both in terms of revenue, which was announced by the Deloitte Money League. Man United's revenues have really tumbled in the last couple of seasons due to their inability to put together a string of great results on the pitch and missing out on Europe and, failing to win the Europa League, etc. And now you're asking a big sort of overhaul of a really important area of a pitch in midfield, and that's going to cost a lot of money. So I give Michael Carrick a lot of credit, especially given the fact that he was written off by some former players before even taking the field as Man United's manager, and particularly the City game. I thought Man United were so good in that game. And actually Fulham at the weekend, I thought Fulham played a very solid game as well. And to come back from conceding a 92nd minute, 91st minute equaliser to Kevin, phenomenal goal as well, and still show the spirit to get down the other end, and Bruno Fernandes, who is probably the form player in the Premier League right now as well, to produce that moment for Sesko, and Sesko to turn and finish like that. Amazing moment. But Man United being back, it feels way too easy to say, but could they finish in the top 4 with so few games ahead of them? Absolutely.
Yeah, the calendar is their friend, isn't it?
100%.
And do you know what? I feel almost a bit silly, because it's not that I went into bat for Amorim, because I never really had I don't think I ever really supported what he was doing. I think I just...
Were you never that negative on them?
No, I wasn't. I think I accepted his premise, so I accepted his system. And I was trying to see it from his point of view and how to fit the players in. And over the summer, I didn't really have an issue with what they were doing in the transfer market with Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko, because it was on the basis that Bruno Fernandes was going to be playing as one of the 2 central midfielders. And I had basically accepted that as completely fine because Bruno played well there. What I had forgotten was how unbelievable he is when he plays as the 10. Yep. So I think I'd lost sight of it a bit because it had just been a while since I'd seen it. So you forget things. And since he has returned to that more attacking role, and particularly against Man City, he was a 10 out of 10. It was a glorious performance. And it was one of those where you sit there and go, I forgot how good you are. Yeah. And he's carried on doing it, and he probably will carry on doing it because he is that good. Something so simple has changed the trajectory of everything for Man United. And Mbeumo up front, Cunha off the left, scoring bangers again. It's just working. How much
Hobby to come back at this level as well.
And so, yeah, he steps back into the team and he's just great. And you're just like, oh, cool. So that's fine. That really reflects quite poorly on Ruben Amorim, because he was adamant that not only was he basically not good enough to play for Man United, he was in competition for a spot on the field with Bruno Fernandes and they would not be playing together. Well, they seem to be doing okay.
Absolutely.
My theory here is that they are enjoying... Look, they're good, and Carrick has made some very simple moves to make them a lot better. They are obviously enjoying a bit of a honeymoon period. It could have come a cropper late against Fulham, and it nearly did. Well done to them for not doing so. But if you're a Chelsea fan, a Villa fan, all those looking around that top 4, top 5 area and starting to worry about Man United's resurgence, I think it is something to be worried about because they are clearly starting to click. However, it's the same thing we said about Villa. You won't win every game. So it's one of those lovely purple patches, and the other teams are going to have their moment too. So we'll see how they react. And they'll be there or thereabouts. I hate that phrase, but they will be. I'm so sorry. But if Bruno carries on as he is, then they will get into the top 5, and it will be somebody else missing out.
For sure. I mean, they weren't far away from it being 5 points from 3 games, which does feel very, very different. You know, if Cunha doesn't score that absolute banger at the Emirates late on, and Dougie also scores a phenomenal kind of 1 in 50 chance, maybe. I don't even know whether he scores that 1 in 50, maybe 1 in 100 chance in that game as well.
Goal,
it was really, really good. And then also against Fulham, the narrative could have been so different if they'd thrown away a 2-goal lead to draw at home against Fulham. Everyone's saying again, they don't have it against the so-called smaller teams, and I say that in inverted commas, or against the sides that sit a little bit deeper, etc. Although I didn't think Man City offered anything against them, to be totally honest, as well. So, yeah, there's question marks there. What's also been quite nice to see is Lisandro Martinez put together a run of games as well, and I think him and Harry Maguire, with the right shape in front of them, I've never really seen them have such little ground to cover and not be as exposed by this midfield that for years, both under Amorim and Ten Hag, was very, very easy to counter-attack through as well.
Yeah.
And you asked Harry Maguire to do nuts and bolts defending, block, and he got it wrong at the weekend with that penalty given away. But aside from that, him and Lisandro, I think, have been really impressive.
Yeah, okay. Right, let's move to just a quick one on Chelsea. My question is, does it end in tears for Liam Rosenior? And that, I think, is a very apt idiom based on the fact that they actually made one of their own players cry in January. So
Wait, who cried in January?
Aaron Anselmino was crying when he was recalled from loan from Dortmund.
I didn't like that, to be totally honest.
You didn't like him crying?
No, he's entitled to cry. I mean, let it out, Aaron. You didn't
like the move?
I didn't like Chelsea recalling him from a place that you forget that this is a very young player here, and you're taking him out of an environment where he's clearly enjoying playing football and just sending him to France as if that's just just go play in Strasbourg now mid-season. It's quite brutal.
I voted that this is the worst, not the worst, the weirdest transfer of the entire January window. Like, if you were going to recall one centre back and there was going to be one that played at Strasbourg, why wouldn't you just let Mamadou Sarr stay where he was and not have to reset and work it out again? The whole thing baffles me completely. So yeah, I feel your pain, Diggs.
And from Anselmino's point of view here, it's he was a Champions League player. He's not anymore. He is now a Europa League player, or are they in the Conference League? One of the two. He is now. So he has been downgraded 2 European competitions by force, and so it's really tough on him. I mean, look, ultimately, Chelsea do treat players like commodities. They treat them like trading cards, and we know this. This is a very extreme example. It's a very visceral example because he's cried and people know about it. And then not off the back of this because they're not linked, but they could become linked in the future. Jeremy Jacquet chooses Liverpool. And I just think it might be a bit of a watershed moment. Again, excuse the pun. Because players are going to start wising up to this. And if they don't want to be treated like trading commodities and want to be treated like players, they might not go to Chelsea anymore. Because, I mean, Jacquet was picking between Liverpool, who's, they've got Van Dijk, Konate is out of contract, and Joe Gomez, who's one leg.
And Leone, who has
the torn ACL on his debut. Very unfortunate. They have been in a centre-back crisis all season. They will continue to be in a centre-back crisis. And the future of Konate is up in the air. Versus Chelsea, I count 10 senior centre-backs on the books. They've got an outstanding young homegrown talent in Josh Achiampong. They've got Mamadou Sarr. They've got Disasi still there. You know, it's like,
Cole will come back.
Guys, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. And if you join this multi-club organisation, you may be moved around against your will. And I think it's very interesting. But just back to Chelsea in general and Liam Rosenior, I mean, he's won most of his games so far. He has been ridiculed for LinkedIn speak by the internet, but he's won the games. That's the most important thing. Do you think this ends well for Rosenior? Do you think he comes out of this having succeeded for the rest of the season and looks like one of the hottest prospects in the manager's game? Or do you think this comes crumbling down?
I think it could end in tears in 2 years, but I think there's a very decent chance that they finish in the top 5, which would be job done, given where he was when he took over. Although at the same time, they weren't a complete disaster under Maresca. I think he'd won maybe 1 in 5 prior to being removed, but he would still be here if he hadn't fallen out with the hierarchy. It wasn't really based on results. It was more to do with off-the-pitch relations.
Yeah.
And Liam Rosenior's side have shown a lot of spirit, particularly against Napoli. I think as bad as Napoli have been in the Champions League this year, to go there and win, even if they're injury depleted, etc., and go behind in that game as well and come back and win, very impressive. They were nowhere against West Ham at the weekend for the first 50 minutes, showed amazing spirit to come back from that as well. And yes, it's West Ham, but West Ham have been pretty decent in the last few weeks as well. They absolutely thrashed my side, Sunderland, as well. Less said about that, the better.
Yeah.
And he's getting the best out of a lot of players that I think João Pedro had a solid start to the season, but I don't think he looked absolutely excellent across the entire time. And now he feels like Liam Rosenior's kind of man. And every video that I've seen from their training ground as well, you see Liam Rosenior really talking to him, really getting his arm around his shoulder, seems to be responding to that really, really well. Cole Palmer's now coming back from injury as well. Enzo Fernandez is playing very good football. I'd be surprised if they didn't finish in the top 5, and that would be job done for Liam Rosenior. And yes, obviously it's his first job in the Premier League, big pressure coming in. There was a lot of criticism about stuff that he said in press conferences and adverts for Football Manager and stuff. I thought that was all a little bit unnecessary. A lot of managers, I think, come out with some interesting quotes in press conferences. It's all about, management of a squad and motivating players in different ways. Arteta's certainly said a lot of very cringe things in the last few years, and everyone thinks he's probably the outstanding manager in the Premier League right
Everyone
now.
does hate him, though.
Yeah.
To be fair, he annoys everyone.
But I think it's refreshing.
I think Rosenior annoys most people too.
Really? I've got no issue
I will say,
with his
though,
chat.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. To be really clear, it's so irrelevant whether or not you are annoyed by Mikel Arteta or not. The point is, he keeps winning games of football, so that's fine. Okay, on to Spurs. We're casting our eyes way down the table now, way down. Would sacking Thomas Frank now improve Spurs for the rest of the season, or at this point, is it simply better to wait it out?
Now, we kind of talked about this on WhatsApp earlier, that there's chat about Spurs being in a relegation battle. I just don't think they are.
So they're 9 points clear of the relegation battle.
They're not.
Well, they're 9
go
points
down.
clear of it.
There's no way that Spurs squad goes down.
I agree. I think the
Champions League.
I think the suggestion that Spurs and Palace are in the relegation mix is like classic hyperbole.
Palace have won 1 game in the last 11, and the last win was on the 7th of December.
Yeah, fine, but still,
Palace feel more likely to me than Spurs.
I think if you're 9 points clear of the scrap, I don't think you're in the scrap. I understand that it may change, but that would mean that would require you to have a lot of faith in West Ham not capitulating off the back of that Chelsea collapse and just going winless for another which they probably, let's be honest, they're highly likely to not win too many of the games that are coming up, and Axel Disasi may not be able to fix that. They don't look like a team that is capable of keeping their heads and they've left themselves a lot to do because they're 6 off Forest and Leeds and they're 9 off Palace and Spurs. But look, whether or not we think Spurs are in this mix or not, they should be looking up, not down. They should be looking at a top half finish, and they are still in the Champions League. So there is an argument that were they to change manager, it might help their goals in Europe, and it might help their goals moving up the table. There's also an argument that he's got them this far in the Champions League, and they'll probably end up 10th. Where do you fall on this?
I think I wouldn't get rid of him. I think if you look at the managerial market right now, unless you're appointing an interim to the end of the season, what is the point, really? I think there's a very decent chance that if it wasn't for their Champions League form, he might have been fired already. But given the fact that they are through to the last 16 as the 4th best side in that Champions League table, and they did have a very favourable run of fixtures, I would say, and played teams at good times as well, I just don't see the point. What I can imagine happening, which I personally wouldn't be totally against, is they reassess at the end of the season if things haven't improved significantly in the league, and potentially Man United hire a new manager and Michael Carrick goes to Spurs, which I think I'd quite like.
Oh,
back to his former club.
That's a nice little idea.
Does your answer to this question change if Xabi Alonso would take the job?
Do you think
What,
Xabi Alonso
mid-season?
goes to Spurs? I think it absolutely.
Sorry, if I got wind of Xabi Alonso being willing to take the Spurs, like if I was the board, I'd be like, Tom, my friend, it's been a good run.
Yeah, I can't see that either. I think Xabi Alonso has much better offers in the summer than Spurs, to be honest. I think there's a good chance that he maybe takes over at Man City or would be their first choice if Pep leaves. What about you, though? Where do you fall on this Thomas Frank debate?
I mean, he should have been sacked in October, but since they've left it 4 more months, I just don't see the point. Like, I really don't. They're going to have to do some surgery to this squad in the summer. It is technically full of young high potential players, and there are quite a lot of. It's not like it's lacking in quantity either. It's just that they're all injured. So
I was going to say quantity right now.
It just looks like there aren't any players, but they actually are. They're just all sat in the treatment room. You know when you see at Palace and at Bournemouth, they've got the little viewing box, and sometimes the camera zooms in on all the injured players. It's at Bournemouth where they all sit there with their little, and they've all dragged a seat up, and it's like 14 of them. It's absolutely ridiculous. I do feel a little bit sorry for them in that respect.
They're quite long-term injuries as well. There's like Bentancur, Bergvall, Kudus, and Solanke's now back, of course, but Maddison, Kulusevski, it's all quite long-term.
They're all 3+ months, and obviously Kulusevski's, no one's seen him since May. He was spotted on a plane to Barcelona recently. Did you see that?
No.
So there's been obviously no announcement, but he was photographed or getting out of his seat on a plane that had landed in Barcelona. And the theory is that in Barcelona, that amazing knee doctor,
guy.
Dr. Ramon Cugat or something
like that.
The guy everyone goes to. Yeah. So I think they're clearly. Well, I say clearly. I don't know, but the theory is that it's not going great, or it could be a checkup.
Could be.
It could be. Let's not create hysteria where there shouldn't be hysteria. But he's not fit. Maddison's out for the season. I do feel a bit sorry for them. I saw Spurs fans at the end of the window saying, "Well, we should have signed a winger because we should have signed a winger." And I was like, "You are currently short of wingers or short of attacking midfielders, but when all of your players are fit, you actually easily have enough wingers and attacking midfielders." So if Thomas Frank was saying one thing and the board was relaying a different message, I can kind of understand how that may have ended up becoming an impasse, because when they're all fit, they have loads of players. They're just not fit.
Yeah. One thing that I would say is a positive from Thomas Frank's perspective is that he has used a back three on occasion, which I think does suit their array of centre-backs pretty well. And also Xavi Simons, after a really slow start to the season, a little bit like Florian Wirtz, but even slower in Xavi Simons' case,
Much
I would
worse.
say. Looks a little bit brighter.
Yeah, last couple of weeks. Well done to him.
Yeah.
Really good. And he was really good against City, wasn't he? So good stuff. All right, no point sacking Frank.
No.
Wait and see what happens.
Potentially at the end of the season. I'm not totally against it at the end of the season.
They could still win the Champions League.
Imagine.
Okay, so let's broaden this out to finish up. A couple of questions. First one, who's going to win the Champions League? Wait, who did you pick before the season?
So on my YouTube channel at the start of the season, I thought it was going to be between, I can barely speak, Arsenal and Barcelona.
Okay.
I don't feel very confident of Barcelona, if I'm totally honest. I feel pretty confident about Arsenal.
So before the season, I also picked Barcelona. And I now feel very bad about that because, look, defensive issues, fine. Defensive fitness, fine. Whatever. It's been a tumultuous year for that line. It's Pedri's hamstrings, man. That's the thing that's actually genuinely making me think they can't do this, because at the moment you really need to rely on him. It just goes. And it's happened like twice this year now, a 1-month injury on his hamstrings. And it could easily happen a third time just at the wrong time. So he spooked me. I said in the group, didn't I? I was looking at how I could maybe donate my hamstrings. Because I'm very tall and my hamstrings are very tight, but they never go. So I could potentially
he'd have excess hamstring in there, though. There'd be too much hamstring.
Okay, maybe we could cut one of mine in half and split them across. I don't know. I would be willing to do it. I would donate my hamstrings if it were...
It's not very patriotic of you before a World Cup.
Oh, that's a very good point.
That feels horrible to prey on Pedri being out for the World Cup. I'd love for him to be fit, but it'd be good for England.
Don't worry. To be fair, this is all conceptual.
Yes.
I'm not gonna take my own hamstrings out. Don't worry. Okay, so you're still feeling good about Arsenal?
I still feel very good about Arsenal, to be totally honest. I just think they've got a sort of strategy and a squad that's very suited to two-leg football. And a final would make me very nervous, as I'm sure it would make every Arsenal fan. But I Struggle to see them being beaten across 2 legs.
Yes, I generally struggle to see Arsenal being beaten full stop these days, especially over 2 legs. I've gone around the houses on this, and this game where you try and pick a Champions League winner, it's basically a process of elimination. You start with a list of teams, and then you rule them out because of reasons you don't like. You don't pick a team because you think they're the best, or because I think they can do this. Yeah. You end up ruling teams out. So like, okay, Liverpool do have it in them on their day, but there's nothing this season that suggests that they can go ahead and win the Champions League, in my opinion. No to Tottenham. Barcelona, Pedri's hamstrings. Mm-hmm. Chelsea, untrustworthy. Man City, fragile. Inter, bit of a disappointment on the Champions League stage so far this season. Madrid, will they just combust? Like, and PSG, can you show us the real PSG?
It's February now, still waiting.
And we're still waiting. And Bayern, probably 3 months ago I'd have said Bayern, but
they're having a tiny blip at the moment.
I don't have enough faith. Basically, my answer is, and it's super boring, but it's the reigning champions, PSG. Basically, I think that PSG will wake up when it matters. And some of the fitness issues will need to clear up for that to happen. But I just wonder, will the mentality of the team just take over, and will they just show us their best? So that's where I am. I've defected from Barca, and I've moved back towards PSG.
I have Bayern considerably higher than PSG in my mind right now.
Jack, do you have any strong feelings here?
No, I think you're right. It does feel like a very strange draft class. Yeah. In terms of what it is.
I'll give you loads of reasons why none of them will win it.
It's a weird one. Part of me still thinks that out of nowhere, City will come screaming through the Champions League with Donnarumma in goal. Oh, yeah. There's a spine there. If a couple of players come back, suddenly this looks a lot different. And, obviously Semenyo and Gay added for this knockout stage. Part of me thinks that City comes screaming back into it. I don't think they'll win the Premier League, but I think out of nowhere we might just see City win the Champions League. And if that happens, I think Pep does walk away.
Well, here's the thing. So to support your point, I think we've talked about it before, but how did PSG win the Champions League last year? Well, with no small amount of Donnarumma
peaking as well
against Aston Villa and against Arsenal. He's basically the reason that they managed to negotiate those 2 ties. And so I can't really fault the logic based on the fact they have Erling Haaland up front and Donnarumma at the back. It's a tournament knockout team. It feels like that's what they've built.
It does, and it felt like that at the start of the season. I wrote this in my transfer bit on the day that Donnarumma signed, being like, City might win the Champions League here. I don't think this will be enough over the course of a league season to win them the league, but it might be the Champions League that they kind of end up going for. I would just say, and sadly they're not going to win it, but the most impressive side, I think, over the entirety of that league stage, if you take spend and all of those things into account, is Sporting by such a distance. Yeah. They have been absolutely breathtaking at times under Hojbjerg, and I think it's a real shame that we can't include them in these kind of conversations because the talent just isn't there across the board to knock out some of these big guns over 2 legs, I don't think. But my God, what a brilliant performance.
Yeah, nice. Really, so it does lead me on to the next question, actually, a little bit, because my final question is, across the continent, what storylines have you guys got your beady little eyes on? And without wanting to steal Jack's thunder, that Portuguese title race is interesting. Porto have finally lost a game of football. And Sporting are really good. And the gap is 5 points, I think. Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 5 points. And Porto have looked basically invincible all season long, and finally they've lost a game. Just as Sporting are really kicking into gear. I just wonder. I am looking at that, and I think that looks really interesting. But Jack, just give you a second to prepare for that one. The thing that I'm keeping my eye on, and it is Villa related. It's the Europa League pathways. So Villa have done the smart thing and finished in the top 2. Which this year means...
I was looking at it, you've got quite a decent path.
Well,
potentially.
It depends, because obviously you get 1 of 4 teams. Yeah. So the easiest path, I think, is basically, whoever comes through the qualifier out of Celta Vigo, Red Star and PAOK, followed by probably Freiburg, followed by probably Midtjylland.
Can you get Lille as well?
Yes. And then Lyon would be in the final. So on the opposite side of the brackets are Lyon, 1 and 2. The hardest path looks like Lille, Roma, Betis, Lyon.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'm not one to shy away from a tough game in Europe. I think these are the games that you want.
Yeah.
Like, right, you'd be proud to win and you'd be desperate to play. I mean, it would be a hell of a gauntlet. But if Villa did end up winning the Europa League, having beaten Lille, Roma, Betis, Lyon, you'd be unbelievably proud of that run. All right, fine, we could maybe mix in Celta Vigo to start with to give us a... But that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's so Europa League and it's so cool.
That would be epic. On their season so far, though, I don't think Lille, Betis or Roma have had as good a season as Villa so far. I mean, particularly Roma, I think, have been a little bit disappointing in terms of a number of their key attackers not really firing, particularly in their striking department. Lille have had a real massive dip recently, and Betis have been maybe not as thrilling as previous years, let's say. I'd still... Even with that run, you feel like a very good bet to make the final.
Of course, the Premier League team should be in pole position for this kind of thing. The one thing I really don't like is at the very start of the January transfer window, and I think it probably has ended up being my favourite deal, is Endrick's loan to Lyon.
Oh,
and hasn't he started like a house on fire?
So fun.
And isn't that a massive problem for Villa now? If you get to May, and it's like, oh, mate, it's Endrick.
Yeah.
So I've gone from like really happy to see him get out and spread his wings to don't you dare.
He's making a World Cup run.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
making.
What about you across Europe?
I think there's a couple of very interesting things. I think a couple of weeks ago, Serie A's title race looked absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now it feels like Inter are very firmly in the driving seat, but the race for the top four in Serie A is well worth keeping an eye on. I think La Liga's relegation battle as well is a classic. So Rayo Vallecano are in 18th at the moment. They've got 22 points. Alaves are 10th, and they've got 25. So there is 3 points between Alaves in 10th and Rayo Vallecano in 18th. And in the middle of that, or in between those sides, on goal difference in the case of Athletic Club, but you've got Athletic Club, you've got Girona, who were in the top four a couple of years ago. You've got a club of the size of Sevilla, Valencia, and Getafe, who have been a more of a mid-table established side for a number of years. There are some big, big sides that could go down. And Levante and Oviedo have got their... started to get a few more results recently as well. So they're Levante's only 4 points off Rayo Vallecano. So there could be a really epic La Liga relegation battle, and you could see a giant of Valencia, Sevilla, even an Athletic Club, although that does feel unlikely.
Come on.
It does feel unlikely.
Never been relegated.
They're not playing well, man. They're not playing well.
Sorry,
They're really not, but we don't have that.
And we don't entertain those notions around here. Thank you very much.
I forget that you guys are tied to them through your souls. And New Balance.
Yeah. What about the top of the La Liga table, man?
That's
where most
interesting
people
as
would go.
well. I mean, it's fun. Yeah, I mean, Barcelona and Real Madrid, both a little bit flawed. 1 point between them. You know, we haven't even touched on Arbeloa and Xabi Alonso and that crazy decision to fire him. Mental. I mean, we did a whole podcast on it just before the break.
Yeah, we were
as
like,
well.
they shouldn't do this.
And then they just did it.
And then they lost the Coppa game.
Yeah.
And they didn't. So they lost the
Super Cup.
They lost the
Super
Coppa.
Coppa game.
Yeah.
And then they fired him. And then Arbeloa lost to Albacete. Good times. I mean,
Crazy.
as in good times, as in never not fun.
Yeah.
Never dull for Real Madrid.
It's still going under the radar how good Mbappe has been this season as well. I don't think people have given it enough credit. I think he's been absolutely phenomenal. And for Real Madrid to look like they might not win any trophy despite his season, pretty gutting.
Well, that's on you because you have your own YouTube channel, you have your own podcast, and you work for Sky Sports. Just shout it.
I will shout it louder.
Every other second, just start shouting about
Mbappe.
it. People need to know, and you have the platform.
There's something about Mbappe, though. People are just not that bothered about him anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels like Yamal is taking up so many
Yeah.
headlines over there, and everyone's just like, oh, yeah, Mbappe scored another 40 goals this year.
Of course, we all love the
fresh new thing.
Yeah, the bright new thing. Very exciting, and Yamal certainly is that. Also, Mbappe is kind of out of mind for a lot of traditional English fans. So I guess maybe that plays into it too.
Well, shout it louder.
Jack, did you like my Portuguese shout? You must be quite interested in this title race.
Over the moon, mate, with your shout. Look, it is weird. Obviously, Porto lost their first game, which was disappointing considering it came against Casapia. But it also has gone under the radar that whilst I agree with you that Sporting are just finding the groove, they've also won both of their last two with a 96th minute goal from Luis Suarez. So like it does feel a bit like they're living on the edge at the same time. What great couple of weeks for Portuguese football, by the way. Like obviously the Benfica result that brought them in, Sporting getting into the top 7, then Porto jumping into the top 8 in terms of the Europa League as well. It has been really, really interesting. And I think they are quietly still a good outside bet for the Europa League because teams are not going to enjoy going to the Dragao. No. And I think that they've just been very, very good, especially at home all season long. So I think that you can look at a lot of these things. The storyline that I would add, though, to this mix is just how good Como are. Like I watched their game against Fiorentina in the Cup in midway, and obviously Fiorentina have bigger concerns than the Coppa Italia right now, but they were so good, and the amount of talent they were able to just bring off the bench in the dying stages. Like Nicholas Kuhn had terrified Fiorentina all game, and then they were like, "Oh, good. Here's Jesus Rodriguez. Oh, and here's Jaden Adai on the other flank." And even Morata scored. That's how good they were. They managed to make a goal for Morata. But it really has, like, Cesc started to do some really cool things. He's playing Martin Baturina as a false 9 at times. We're seeing him and Nico Paj, sort of dovetailing in those roles. Duvicas is still playing really, really well. Some of these wingers, Asana Diao, Jesus Rodriguez, Jaden Adai, and Nicholas Kuhn. That is an unbelievable wing core with Paj and Baturina in the middle. They just have so much to offer, and Cacare's playing at the level that we thought he might. They've got a really good shot in Europe and a really good shot at the Coppa Italia. I think they fancy a cup win to just sort of put them in the conversation of, oh, we've arrived. And I'm not going to pretend to you that Como is a fairy story. They're backed by very, very rich men who are spending a lot of money. But they're spending a lot of money in the right kind of ways. It's young players coming in, getting opportunities under an exciting young coach. And I think watching them has been a delight pretty much all season long. And I'm hoping that I can continue to do that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where the narrative will very quickly turn over to Cesc Fabregas, because if he does too well, all of those manager-needy clubs like Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool and Manchester City, potentially, the three of them.
Spurs,
I mean, Fabregas is going to be an obvious look for someone like City, isn't he? In the same way that Xabi Alonso would have been.
He'll be under consideration, I would have thought. It might just be a little bit too early to replace Guardiola for Fabregas. I would guess. I would go Xabi Alonso first, I would have thought. So Barcelona, when they replaced Pep Guardiola in midfield, they went for Busquets and then steadily moved through to Fabregas. So if you could appoint Busquets as manager first, maybe temper Fabregas in later with a bit of Xavi, maybe that's the way to do it. There we go. Right, that's a podcast. We've done it. That's a podcast. Thoroughly enjoyed being back.
I don't know if Man United are back, but the truth is certainly it's back. Doogie's back. I'm back. Jack's back. It's been lovely to sit at the table with you guys and record. Lovely to produce a podcast and get off my arse after 6 weeks. Look, I wasn't being lazy. It was a very busy week. Even though nothing happens in the window, you're still busy. That doesn't seem fair. I'm going to take a few days off.
You're owed it.
For sure. Right. Thank you for listening, guys. Appreciate you. We will see you same time next week.